The Biden administration's Build Back Better plan is coming under scrutiny because of a clause in the act prohibiting religious organizations from making use of the bill's funding. The $1.7 trillion bill sets aside some $400 billion for expansions for childcare and new universal pre-kindergarten, but religious facilities like Catholic schools are blocked from the funding. It's an issue Senate Republicans held a roundtable about at the start of this month, and the Superintendent of Schools for the Archdiocese of Boston was invited to speak.
Is putting religious institutions in a position in which, if they want to get the money or to accept money that goes to parents, they have to enter a Faustian bargain in which they agree to basically give up their faith. The Catholic Church, we have 2,000 years of church teaching. We're not giving it up to get federal money for childcare or pre-K.
Superintendent Carroll joins us now from Boston to tell us more. Thank you for providing insight on this bill. Tom, how did you first discover these provisions, and how do they affect you and your schools in Boston?
Yeah, I found out from the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops, kind of gave us a heads up that the provision was in there. And I share the goal of expanding preschool. My wife is actually used to be a preschool teacher, and having expanded healthcare. Here in Massachusetts, 75% of the available parents in households across the state are working. And so there's a lot of interest in expanding access. Here in Massachusetts, we've had a program for some time. And it's completely neutral on religion. So we have public providers, we have private providers, religious providers, and we still don't have enough capacity to serve everybody. The mistake that the people are making that slipped this provision in, that basically is forcing religious institutions to walk away from these programs, is we need all hands on deck. We need a set of pluralistic options and let parents decide what kind of education they want. There are two things that decisions they make that are very intimate and personal. That's healthcare on one part. They want to go to the doctor that they're used to going to. But when they decide on where their child is going during the day, whether it's childcare or preschool or regular school, it's a very personal decision about finding a place that reflects their values and their faith, depending on what their circumstance is. And this bill doesn't allow it. On one hand, it has language saying all people can participate, including religious institutions. But the price of participation is that we essentially have to give up our faith to participate. We're simply not going to take. Yeah.
Give me some examples of that.
Under the guise. Yeah, sure. So under the guise of anti-discrimination language, it basically says, for example, we can't discriminate based on religion. Well, we obviously, and I use this, the word has a pejorative sense, but obviously you have to be Catholic to be a Catholic priest. We also believe you have to be a practicing Catholic to be a principal of a Catholic school, to teach religion in a Catholic school. And we hire non-Catholics for other positions, but for those positions, we feel very strongly about that. The primary goal of our schools is to evangelize children. So it's important that we have people who share our faith in those key positions. That would not be allowed under the bill. The bill also, because it subjects us to Title IX, which bans discrimination based on gender, which sounds fine. And we obviously don't discriminate in the sense that most people think of that word. But we do have schools that are all boys schools and all girls schools. So if any of those schools are elementary schools that include a preschool position, by not having the standard religious exemptions that all these education laws have had for the last 3 decades under both parties, as the presidency flip-flops and the Senate and the House flip-flop back and forth over the last 3 decades, there's been a bipartisan consensus to carve out these exemptions. So we think it's really important to have religious providers included. Roughly 52% of all the seats in the country are provided for childcare and pre-K are provided by religious institutions, because that's what parents are looking for in many cases, particularly in urban centers where we have very deep roots. The Catholic Church doesn't just do pre-K. We do immigration services, homeless services, the whole continuum of services in the community. We are deeply embedded in the communities in which we're located. And that gives us knowledge and access to people who we need services. And so you shouldn't be pushing people like that out of the way in a zeal to end up with a program that at the end of the day, if they don't fix this, it's going to be a purely public program with no religious participation. Now, I know there are some people that would be gleeful if that happened, and there's some ideologues that are going around lobbying in that direction, but that's not what parents are looking for. Parents are looking for options. These parents, I don't know their children. They know their children. They are the ones who should be making the decision on what kind of childcare and what kind of preschool environment their children are in, and what kind of virtues they want passed on, and what kind of faith they want passed on.
That's right.
So it should be a bureaucrat in Washington. It shouldn't be me. It shouldn't be, a bunch of elected officials in D.C. either. So I think they need to amend the bill to allow participation of religious institutions on the same neutral basis that we've had all along for 3 decades. And people think of the First Amendment, as you know, they think of free speech and freedom of the press. But embedded in the First Amendment is one of the cardinal priorities of the founding of this country is free exercise of religion. And this bill runs counter to that, because the price of participation in preschool and childcare, if this goes through, written the way it is freedom of the religion for the parents who want to have their child educated, reflecting their own values, is going to go thrown right out the window. And a broader goal of expanding access to preschool, which is very important in childcare, is also going to go out the window. Because when you knock out half of the people that are providing the seats in the country, you're not expanding access, you're contracting it.
And you're
just
not
like
going to let people go
Obamacare,
back to work, of course. Part of the coalition letter that was sent by a group of religious leaders that you just noted this statistic from the Bipartisan Policy Center that 53% of Americans choose religious or faith-based childcare options. You were talking about that. How is this so significant coming back from the pandemic? Religious people want to build back too.
Sure. So we've actually had an incredible run in the last 18 months. Since July of 2020, our enrollment, after 50 years of decline in enrollment, our enrollment went up by almost 6,000 people. So there's a thirst out there in the wake of the pandemic for a variety of reasons of people want to get into religious schools, and it's bringing people back to faith in many respects. But I frankly, personally, I don't, it's a funny thing to say as a Catholic school superintendent, but I don't care whether they pick our schools or somebody else's schools. I just think parents should have, I'm a supporter of school choice. I think there should be lots of choices, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let the parents sort out what's best for their own children. I'm not in favor of kind of bossing or forcing people into one type of school or another, even if it's a school that I happen to run. So what they're doing is taking a whole set of options that are very popular with parents, that are have a disproportionate footprint in the child care and early childhood education space, and they're putting in conditions, basically us giving up our faith, that are going to make it impossible for us to participate. So that we don't want that to happen, but it's not just because of us. It's because of the parents involved and the children involved.
That's right.
And the people who should decide how children are educated in the country are the parents.
Well,
and
we're
the
very
parents
supportive
are
of that, Tom, and
being
we know
shortchanged here.
That's right, they are, and we know that you came to Capitol Hill to make that clear, and we'll be looking out for this for you. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you for the opportunity to make more people know about this.
That's right.